Embryo Afterglow, People's Steeple. It's Rhyme and Reason 938.
Here's your rhyme and reason. Oh yeah.
Hey there, Tony here, and I'm going to share a little secret with you. I don't think I've shared this before. Listen closely. Elgeline and I buy frozen blueberries, and we don't thaw them out. Just thought I'd share that with you. No, I brought it up for a reason. And not because she says the frozen blueberries are like tiny round popsicles, even though they are. I mentioned them because they remind me of a frozen embryo story that I wrote about some time ago. You do know a frozen embryo is a human being, right? Well, if it's a frozen human embryo, it is. And the story I want to share, again, is about the humankind. And I want to share this story again because it's so awesome for multiple reasons. Okay, here you go. Imagine you're a 5-year-old girl and a doctor tells your parents you have sickle cell anemia. By the ripe old age of 11, you get so sick, your parents move to another country because they want to make sure you can get a bone transplant from your brother. Then, at 17, doctors decide you'll need chemotherapy. They say kids endure this treatment much better than adults. But they also know that you show signs of puberty, and they know chemo has a high risk of damaging your ovaries. Okay, are you with me so far? Great. Now, imagine doctors or parents who have so much foresight they remove part of your right ovary and freeze it because they hope someday someone will be able to graft it back in when you mature. That's a big wowzer, and that's really thinking ahead, wouldn't you agree? And it's very optimistic, which I admire. Anyway, let's say about 10 years later, doctors do graft 4 parts of that frozen ovarian tissue back into your remaining ovary. Do you think that ovary could grow eggs? Even if it did, could that lead to pregnancy? Would you believe me if I told you it happened? Yep, this is a true story. It's not some tale fresh out of my fruitful imagination. And the young woman in her middle 20s became pregnant and gave birth to a baby boy. A healthy baby boy who weighed in at almost 7 pounds. I read a couple of articles about that event and everyone was happy about how it turned out. But I've yet to read if anyone else thinks it's an incredible display of God's design. Haven't seen that because the human gene pool is so diluted and broken now that it almost seems impossible to reuse a frozen ovary, much less a frozen embryo. So it's like this. It's one thing to remove and freeze a part of a 13-year-old girl's ovary, but it's even more amazing to graft that part back in about 10 years later. And it's even more amazing for the young woman to produce eggs, and to top it off, the young woman gets pregnant? Now that's design, and not just any design. That's infinitely complex, and it's a wonderful design only a loving God could or would do. He placed key information into each cell of your body, and from His Spirit, He poured life into that information. We humans have come a long way in our ability to understand that information, so far, in fact, that we can now freeze embryos and body parts and put them back into use years later. But you know what? We still can't create life. We can only procreate. So it's important to be grateful to the one true living, loving God who designed you that way, because He encoded your cells with information that determined the color of your eyes and your hair, and whether you'd be a male or female. Those are the only 2 choices, by the way, with human body parts. And that information determined your heart would beat on its own, your brain would interpret sensory experiences, and your eyes would encode and decode images in nanoseconds. God's information is in your cells and in your very soul. So you have life, and you can be aware of your own existence. And He designed you to be fruitful and multiply, even if you started out as a frozen embryo. So pass this information on, will you? Pass it on boldly and with all the love you can muster. Here's a life-affirming rhyme to help you remember to do that. Intelligent design and DNA. Scholars can't explain it all away. Get ready to be awed by the handiwork of God. And that makes me think of when I used to watch certain kinds of sci-fi movies way back in decades past that showed unbelievable scenarios for the future. But here we are in that future, and some of those things actually came true. And one of those things in particular is how easy it has become to terminate people just because they annoy you. Yeah, it has become acceptable to terminate people of all ages, starting in the womb. And your own internet browser is going to give you evidence for this. They're called suggestions. Type something into your browser search bar. You don't even have to type the whole phrase, terminate people. Just type the word terminate. Then add a space and then start to go through the alphabet. You won't have to go past A to find the evidence I'm talking about. Because one of the so-called suggestions after you type terminate, A, is terminate a pregnancy. The other suggestions include contract, lease, and process. No problem. But then there's pregnancy. Why is that a suggestion? Because that's what people search for. And that's because nobody wants to do a search for how to kill a baby in the womb. That just sounds so bigoted, hateful, and mean. Why would anybody say that about a terminated pregnancy? They must be old or Republican or something. But have you noticed how many people act as though they don't even know what that is in a mother's womb? And that's in spite of the fact that ultrasound technology has made it so simple to see it's a baby. So what's the problem in these more enlightened days? It has turned into a debate over location and connection. One of the main reasons so many people are comfortable calling a baby in the womb just a lifestyle choice is the baby's location, in the womb. You'd have to be willfully ignorant, also known as extra stupid, to see a woman who's 6 months pregnant and not know what's making her belly protrude. Okay, on a side note, I know the explosion of grossly obese women has kind of blurred this distinction a little, but the point stands. Anyway, point is, even if you're a person who chooses to act stupid, you know what it means when a woman is pregnant. There's a baby in there. So when you terminate pregnancies, you terminate people. Period. And if you support the murder of the most innocent human beings, where will you draw the line? Or will you? The answer is no, you won't draw a line. Because you're willing to buy into the idea that murder is an actual solution to problems. So since you can terminate an unplanned pregnancy, it's only a short step terminating people you disagree with or don't like. And one of the most disagreeable, unlikable people you're likely to run across is someone who holds the opposite political opinions. You might have seen that in action on July 13th of 2024. I haven't been a Donald Trump supporter because of his willingness to compromise on the termination of babies whose fathers were criminals, and his willingness to turn his head when it comes to certain other issues that, let's say, don't meet with God's approval. That being said, I do believe Mr. Trump is an American patriot on a fairly high level. But even if I disagreed with him on everything, including his compromise on abortion, it would never enter my mind to want him terminated. I don't even want that despicable poor excuse for a human being who currently occupies the big White House in Washington, D.C. to be terminated by a bullet. I will rejoice when I see God's vengeance on him and all other God haters one day, though. But someone decided, you know what, it would be fine to put a bullet in Donald Trump's head. And that person, with the backing of who knows who, came within an inch or two of doing exactly that. And boy, I wish that close call would clarify Mr. Trump's respect for human life. I wish he'd think, wow, that bullet zing across my ear hurt bad. I can only imagine what an unborn baby must feel when those cold steel clamps tear his arms off and his legs off. We've got to abolish abortion. I wish he would have thought that. But sadly, I believe that close call will just be another self-serving opportunity. And if Donald's brush with death helps seal a win for him this November, at least he won't destroy America the way Joke Biden has. But without a connection to the true moral compass of the one true living, loving creator, no administration will save America from destruction. Not any of them. Trump will possibly slow down the process somewhat, but a nation that kills 3,000 innocent babies every day and teaches evolution in government indoctrination camps, that nation will not last. And America has already been doing that for 50 years and more. So time is running out. Now, I know in the grand scheme of things, my audience is very small compared to the population of the world. But thanks to internet technology, my message can be seen and heard around the globe. And it is heard around the globe. So if you see or hear this, I hope it inspires you to do what you can to share the saving grace of Jesus and the power of God's love. Because as long as the idea that it's okay to terminate people grows, you have a bullseye on your head too. And you don't have a Secret Service team to shield you from the assassin's bullet. It's all in this rhyme. Time is all you need to create evolution. There's no debate. And when fish turn into people, you'll never need a steeple. It'll turn out fine. You just wait. Okay, that does it for this episode of the Rhyme and Reason podcast, always brought to you by TonyFunderburk.com, where you should go over there right now, jump on the Rhyme and Reason bandwagon, and join the growing band of believers who enjoy books, daily rhymes, songs, and videos about the rhyme and reason and power of God's love.
There's a rhyme and